The emergency beacon screamed through the palace communications center at 0347 hours. Captain Marcus Kane stood at attention in the command room, watching the tactical display show a downed shuttle in the Kepler sector. The red dot blinked against the star map like a dying heartbeat. Single life sign detected, Communications Officer Lisa Chen reported, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Weak, but stable. Queen Helena Voss entered the command center without ceremony, her ceremonial robes replaced by tactical gear. The royal guard snapped to attention, but she waved them down with a sharp gesture. Her eyes locked onto the display, scanning the debris field readings. "How long has the shuttle been down?" she asked. 17 minutes, Your Majesty, Kane replied. The pilot sent a distress signal before impact. The Queen's jaw tightened. The missing shuttle had departed 3 hours earlier on a diplomatic mission to the outer colonies. Only one passenger manifest showed a name that made her breath catch. "Commander Nathan Cross," she whispered. Kane maintained his professional composure, though he noticed the slight tremor in the Queen's voice. Cross had been missing for 6 months after his deep space reconnaissance mission went dark. Intelligence reports suggested his ship had been destroyed by raiders near the Rim territories. "Prep the rescue shuttle immediately," the Queen ordered. "I'm going with the extraction team." "Your Majesty, protocol requires. Protocol can wait." She cut him off. "That man has been presumed dead for half a year. I won't let him die while we debate procedure." The hangar bay erupted into controlled chaos as the rescue team assembled. Queen Helena strapped herself into the co-pilot seat, ignoring the concerned glances from her security detail. Kane took position behind her, monitoring the tactical readouts as the shuttle launched into the black void. The journey to the crash site took 43 minutes. The Queen remained silent, her hands clenched in her lap. Kane had served as her personal guard for 8 years and had never seen her display such raw emotion over a single individual. The wreckage came into view through the viewport. Twisted metal and scattered debris painted a grim picture against the asteroid field. The shuttle's emergency beacon guided them to the main hull section, where life support systems flickered weakly. "There!" The Queen pointed to a section of intact hull. "Breach that panel carefully." The cutting tools carved through reinforced steel with surgical precision. When the panel fell away, emergency lighting revealed a figure slumped against the interior wall. Blood covered his uniform, and his breathing came in shallow gasps. Nathan Cross looked up as light flooded his makeshift shelter. His eyes widened in recognition, then confusion crossed his battered features. "Helena?" he whispered. The Queen pushed past the extraction team and knelt beside him. Her hands moved to his face, checking his pulse and searching for serious injuries. A deep gash ran across his forehead, and his left arm hung at an unnatural angle. "I thought you were lost forever," she said, her voice breaking. Kane stepped forward, medical scanner in hand. Cross had multiple fractures, severe dehydration, and signs of prolonged exposure to cosmic radiation. The man should have been dead weeks ago. "Your Majesty, we need to move him immediately," the medic reported. "He requires emergency treatment." The Queen nodded but didn't release Cross's hand. She helped lift him onto the medical transport, never leaving his side as they carried him back to the rescue shuttle. During the return flight, Cross drifted in and out of consciousness. Each time his eyes opened, they found the Queen's face hovering above him. She whispered reassurances and updates about the kingdom, as if her voice alone could keep him anchored to life. "The peace negotiations succeeded," she told him. "The outer colonies agreed to the trade agreements. Your preliminary reports made the difference." Cross tried to speak but only managed a weak nod. The Queen squeezed his hand gently. Kane watched the interaction with growing understanding. The relationship between his Queen and the missing commander ran deeper than official records indicated. Their connection transcended the typical bonds between ruler and subject. As the palace medical bay came into view, the Queen's composure returned. She straightened her shoulders and resumed the regal bearing expected of her position, but her hand remained clasped around Cross's, unwilling to break that final connection. "Prepare the royal medical suite," she commanded through the communications system. "Full surgical team standing by." The shuttle touched down with barely a tremor. Medical teams rushed the stretcher toward the palace interior while the Queen walked alongside, maintaining her grip on Cross's hand. Kane followed at a respectful distance, his mind already calculating the security implications of this reunion. The automatic doors of the medical wing slid open to receive them. Queen Helena finally released Cross's hand as the surgical team took control. She watched through the viewing window as they wheeled him into the operating theater. 8 hours minimum for surgery, the chief physician reported. His chances are good, Your Majesty. The Queen nodded once and turned away from the window. When she looked at Kane, her expression had returned to its usual composed authority, but her eyes still held traces of the raw emotion he had witnessed in the wreckage. "Not a word of this leaves the medical wing," she said quietly. Kane bowed his head in acknowledgement. Some secrets were worth protecting. The surgical bay's sterile lights cast harsh shadows across the waiting area. Queen Helena sat in the uncomfortable chair, her royal composure cracking with each passing hour. Kane maintained his post by the door, monitoring security feeds while keeping watch over his monarch's emotional state. Dr. Patricia Wells emerged from the operating theater at 11:47 hours, her surgical mask pulled down to reveal a tired but satisfied expression. The Queen rose instantly, her hands clasped behind her back to hide their trembling. "The surgery was successful, Your Majesty," Wells reported. "We've repaired the internal bleeding and stabilized the fractures. Commander Cross will require extensive recovery time, but he should make a full return to health." Relief flooded the Queen's features before she regained control. "When will he regain consciousness?" "Within the next few hours. Anesthesia should wear off gradually. I recommend limited visitors during the initial recovery phase." The Queen nodded curtly. "I'll need a full medical report within the hour. And Dr. Curie, Wells, this patient's presence here remains classified at the highest levels." After the physician departed, Kane approached his queen with measured steps. 8 years of service had taught him to read her moods, and the current tension radiating from her suggested deeper complications than a simple rescue operation. "Your Majesty, perhaps you should rest while Commander Cross recovers. I can maintain watch over the medical bay." "No." The single word carried absolute finality. "I'll remain here until he wakes up." Kane recognized the futility of further argument. He activated his communication device and arranged for a security detail to establish a perimeter around the medical wing. Whatever relationship existed between the Queen and the rescued commander, it required protection from prying eyes and potential political complications. 3 hours later, Cross stirred in the hospital bed. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the dim lighting of the private recovery room. When his gaze found the Queen sitting beside his bed, confusion clouded his features. "This isn't a dream," he said weakly. "No dream," Queen Helena confirmed. "You're safe in the Palace Medical Center." Cross attempted to sit up but winced as pain shot through his injured arm. The Queen gently pressed him back against the pillows, her touch lingering longer than necessary. "The rescue shuttle found you in time," she explained. "You've been unconscious for several hours while the surgeons worked." "How long was I missing?" Cross asked, his voice growing stronger. 6 months. Your reconnaissance mission went dark near the Centauri system. We assumed the worst when no distress signal arrived." Cross closed his eyes, processing the information. When he reopened them, determination had replaced the confusion. "The mission wasn't a complete failure. I gathered intelligence about raider movements and supply lines. The data chips survived the crash." Kane stepped forward from his position near the door. "Sir, any intelligence you collected will be valuable, but your recovery takes priority right now." Cross looked between the captain and the Queen, noting the protective stance Kane had adopted. The guard's positioning suggested he was shielding more than just physical security. "Helena, we need to talk privately," Cross said, his eyes fixed on the Queen's face. She glanced at Kane, who understood the silent dismissal. He bowed slightly and withdrew to the outer corridor, closing the door behind him but maintaining his post just outside. "The raider attacks weren't random," Cross began once they were alone. "They're being coordinated by someone with inside knowledge of our shipping routes and diplomatic schedules." The Queen's expression hardened. "You're suggesting we have a traitor in the administration?" "More than suggesting. I have proof. The data I collected shows communication patterns between raider ships and transmission sources within our own territory." Cross reached for the small storage device clipped to his uniform belt. His fingers trembled from exhaustion, but he managed to extract a microchip barely larger than a fingernail. This contains encrypted communications logs spanning 3 months. The intelligence division can decode the transmissions and trace their origins. Queen Helena took the chip, her fingers brushing against Cross's palm. The brief contact sent visible relief through both of them. "You risked everything to get this information back to us," she said softly. "Some things are worth the risk," Cross replied, his eyes never leaving her face. The weight of unspoken history hung between them. Kane could hear the silence from the corridor, understanding that whatever conversation was taking place involved far more than military intelligence. "Nathan, during those 6 months I had to make decisions as if you were never coming back," the Queen said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The political pressures, the marriage proposals from neighboring kingdoms, the constant demands for alliances." Cross nodded slowly. "You're the Queen first. I never forgot that, even when everything went dark. But you came back," she said, tears threatening the edges of her composure. "Against impossible odds, you found a way back." "I promised I would," Cross reminded her. "Some promises can't be broken, no matter what stands in the way." The room fell silent, except for the soft humming of medical monitoring equipment. Outside in the corridor, Kane checked his chronometer and noted shift changes for the security detail. The rescue operation was officially complete, but he suspected the real challenges were just beginning. Dr. Wells returned to check Cross's vital signs, interrupting the private conversation. She performed quick examinations of his injuries and updated his medication dosage. "Full recovery will require at least 6 weeks of limited activity," she informed them. "The bone fractures need time to heal properly, and the radiation exposure caused some cellular damage that must be monitored." After the physician departed, Queen Helena stood and walked to the window overlooking the palace gardens. The weight of royal responsibility settled back onto her shoulders like a familiar burden. "The data you brought back changes everything," she said without turning around. "If we have a traitor in the administration, it affects every decision we've made regarding the outer colonies." Cross struggled to sit up despite the pain in his arm. "Helena, the political implications of my return go beyond intelligence gathering." She turned to face him, understanding the complexity of his statement. "Presumed dead commander returning with evidence of internal betrayal would send shockwaves through the entire governmental structure." Kane opened the door and stepped back into the room. His expression suggested urgent developments requiring the Queen's attention. "Your Majesty, the Prime Minister has called an emergency session. News of Commander Cross's rescue has reached the Administrative Council. The moment of private reunion was ending, replaced by the harsh realities of political power and public responsibility." The emergency session convened in the palace's secure conference chamber within 2 hours of Kane's announcement. Queen Helena entered the room with measured steps, her royal bearing fully restored after the emotional vulnerability displayed in the medical wing. Prime Minister Gregory Walsh stood at attention along with the 5-member Administrative Council, their faces reflecting a mixture of relief and concern. "Commander Cross has been confirmed alive and recovering," the Queen announced as she took her position at the head of the ornate table. "His rescue was successful and he has provided critical intelligence regarding recent raider activities." Minister of Defense Rebecca Torres leaned forward in her chair. "Your Majesty, with respect, the commander's return raises significant questions about our intelligence operations and security protocols." Kane positioned himself near the chamber's main entrance, monitoring both the internal discussion and external security feeds. The news of Cross's rescue had not yet reached the general population, but whispers were already spreading through palace corridors. "Minister Torres raises valid concerns," Prime Minister Walsh added. "If Commander Cross has been alive for 6 months, why did he not establish communication with command headquarters?" Queen Helena maintained her composed expression while internally wrestling with the protective instincts that had driven her rescue mission. The political implications of her personal investment in Cross's survival could not be ignored. "The commander's ship was severely damaged during the initial attack," she explained. "His communication systems were destroyed, and he was forced to survive in hostile territory while gathering intelligence on raider movements." Foreign Minister Diana Clark spoke up from her position across the table. "Your Majesty, several neighboring kingdoms have been monitoring our response to the increased raider attacks. Commander Cross's sudden reappearance could be viewed as either a strategic advantage or a sign of internal weakness." The truth of Clark's assessment hung heavily in the air. Political allies and enemies alike would scrutinize every aspect of Cross's return, searching for leverage or weakness to exploit. Kane received a priority message through his secure communication device. Dr. Wells was requesting immediate consultation regarding Cross's condition. He approached the Queen discreetly and whispered the urgent medical update. "The session is temporarily suspended," Queen Helena announced, rising from her chair. "We will reconvene once Commander Cross is cleared for debriefing." The Administrative Council exchanged glances that Kane interpreted as skepticism about the medical justification for delay. Political suspicions were already forming about the Queen's personal interest in the rescued commander. The return to the medical wing revealed Cross attempting to review intelligence reports despite his physician's orders for rest. Dr. Wells stood beside his bed with obvious frustration etched across her features. "Commander Cross is refusing sedation and demanding access to classified materials," Wells reported to the Queen. "His stress levels are elevated to concerning degrees." Cross looked up as the Queen entered the room, his expression determined despite the visible exhaustion. "Helena, the Administrative Council doesn't understand the urgency of this intelligence. Every day we delay gives the traitor more time to cover their tracks." Kane observed the interaction between his Queen and the injured commander, noting the informal use of her first name and the complete absence of royal protocol in Cross's address. The familiarity between them suggested a personal history that extended far beyond official duty. "Nathan, your health takes priority over intelligence debriefings," the Queen said, moving to stand beside his bed. "The information can wait until you're stronger." "No, it can't," Cross insisted, attempting to sit up despite Wells's disapproving look. "The communication logs I intercepted show the traitor is planning something within the next 72 hours. Some kind of coordinated attack during the Harvest Festival. The Harvest Festival was scheduled to begin in 4 days, drawing thousands of visitors from across the kingdom to the capital city. The security nightmare of protecting such a large gathering while hunting for an internal traitor made Kane's jaw tighten with professional concern. Queen Helena's expression shifted from caring to commanding in an instant. The personal emotions that had driven her rescue mission were subordinated to the cold calculations required for protecting her people. "What specific intelligence do you have about the festival attack?" she demanded. Cross reached for the data storage device on his bedside table, his movements careful to avoid aggravating his injuries. "Timing. Criminals get steady because of the workie of German stage, and German stage joins into the diplomatic delegations. Based on the timing and coded language, it appears to be targeting either yourself or the visiting diplomatic delegations." The implication struck Kane immediately. An attack during the Harvest Festival would not only threaten the Queen's life, but could destabilize the entire region's political balance. Neighboring kingdoms would interpret such an assault as evidence of internal weakness or failed security. "Dr. Wells, how soon can Commander Cross be cleared for full interrogation?" the Queen asked without taking her eyes off the injured man. "Your Majesty, medically speaking, he needs at least 48 hours before." "We don't have 48 hours, Cross interrupted. "Give me stimulants and pain suppressors. The debriefing needs to happen now." Kane watched the physician's internal struggle between medical ethics and national security demands. The weight of potential catastrophe was forcing impossible choices on everyone involved. Queen Helena made the decision with characteristic authority. "Dr. Wells, provide whatever medical support Commander Cross requires for a 2-hour debriefing session." "Captain Kane, summon Intelligence Director Harrison immediately." As medical staff prepared the necessary medications, Cross gripped the Queen's hand with surprising strength. "Helena, there's something else you need to know before the debriefing. The traitor isn't just feeding information to raiders. They're connected to someone much more dangerous." "Who?" she asked. "Prince Victor Ashford of the Northern Alliance. The communication logs show direct coordination between our traitor and Ashford's personal staff. This isn't about raids or robbery. It's about conquest." The revelation hit Kane like a physical blow. Prince Ashford had been pressing diplomatic claims against their territory for years, always stopping just short of open warfare. If he had successfully planted a spy within their administration, the Harvest Festival attack could be the opening move in a larger invasion. Queen Helena's face hardened into the expression Kane had seen her wear during the most challenging political negotiations. The woman who had desperately rescued her lost commander was transforming into the monarch who would protect her kingdom at any cost. "Get me Intelligence Director Harrison and Minister Torres immediately," she commanded. "And Captain Kane, initiate Security Protocol 7 across all festival preparations." Kane bowed and moved toward the door, understanding that the next few hours would determine whether the Harvest Festival became a celebration or a battlefield. "Doctor." Wells administered the medical support Cross required, her hands steady despite the obvious disapproval in her expression. The stimulants would allow him to function at near normal capacity for several hours, but the long-term cost to his recovery could be significant. "Commander, I'm noting in your medical record that this treatment is being administered under direct royal order against my professional recommendation," Wells stated clearly. Cross nodded his understanding and swung his legs over the side of the bed. The combination of medications and determination allowed him to stand. Though Kane noticed the slight tremor in his injured arm, Intelligence Director Harrison arrived within minutes, his usually immaculate appearance showing signs of hasty preparation. Minister Torres followed close behind, her expression grim with the understanding that national security had shifted from theoretical concern to immediate crisis. "Commander Cross, it's good to see you alive," Harrison said before getting directly to business. "Captain Kane briefed me on your intelligence regarding the Harvest Festival. What specific evidence do you have?" Cross activated a portable display device that Harrison had brought from the intelligence division. The encrypted communication logs appeared as strings of seemingly random characters, but Cross began highlighting specific patterns and transmission timestamps. "Here," he pointed to a series of messages dated 3 days earlier. "This transmission originates from within the palace communication system. The encryption signature matches protocols used by someone with administrative-level access." Harrison's face grew increasingly pale as Cross decoded the messages. The intelligence showed not only coordination with Prince Ashford's forces, but detailed information about the Queen's personal security arrangements and festival attendance schedule. "This level of access could only come from someone with direct involvement in royal security planning," Torres observed. "The number of individuals with this clearance is extremely limited." Kane felt the weight of suspicion settling on his own shoulders. As captain of the Royal Guard, he was among the few people with complete access to the Queen's security protocols. The thought that the traitor might be someone within his own organization made his stomach clench with professional and personal betrayal. "Harrison, I need a complete list of everyone with administrative-level communication access," Queen Helena ordered. Cross referenced that list with individuals who had advanced knowledge of both my rescue mission and the festival security arrangements. The intelligence director's fingers moved rapidly across his portable interface, accessing secure databases and personnel records. Within minutes, a list of 12 names appeared on the display. Kane recognized every individual listed. They represented the core of the kingdom's leadership structure, people he had worked alongside and trusted with the Queen's life on countless occasions. "There's more," Cross said, manipulating the display to show additional intelligence. "The attack isn't just targeting the festival itself. The communication logs reference something called Crown Transfer Protocol. I believe Prince Ashford intends to claim the throne directly." The silence that followed was broken only by the soft humming of medical equipment. The implications of Cross's intelligence went far beyond a terrorist attack or even an assassination attempt. Prince Ashford was planning a complete governmental overthrow. Queen Helena stood and walked to the window, her silhouette framed against the palace gardens where festival preparations were already underway. Thousands of workers were constructing stages, vendor stalls, and celebration areas, completely unaware that their efforts might be providing cover for an invasion. "Harrison, how quickly can you identify our traitor from the access list?" she asked without turning around. "Given the specific communication timestamps and encryption patterns, I estimate 6 to 8 hours for definitive identification," the intelligence director replied. "We have less than 72 hours before the festival begins," Torres added. "If we're going to change security protocols or cancel the event, the decision needs to be made soon." Kane knew that canceling the Harvest Festival would send shockwaves through the kingdom's economy and diplomatic relationships. The event brought millions in trade revenue and strengthened political alliances with visiting delegations. The political cost of cancellation might be almost as damaging as allowing the attack to proceed. "We're not canceling," Queen Helena decided, turning back to face the room. but we're going to use Prince Ashford's plan against him. Cross raised his head despite the obvious fatigue creeping through the medications. What do you have in mind? A cold smile crossed the Queen's lips. We're going to let our traitor think their plan is working perfectly, and then we're going to destroy Prince Ashford's ambitions permanently. The room fell silent as the implications of her strategy became clear. Instead of playing defense against the coming attack, Queen Helena intended to turn the Harvest Festival into a trap that would eliminate the threat from the Northern Alliance once and for all. Kane felt a familiar surge of professional admiration for his monarch's strategic thinking. The woman who had risked everything to rescue one man was now prepared to risk everything to protect millions. The final phase of preparation transformed the palace into a carefully orchestrated theater of deception. Intelligence Director Harrison worked around the clock to identify the traitor, while simultaneously feeding false information through communication channels. Queen Helena maintained her normal festival preparation schedule, appearing in public with the same enthusiasm and security arrangements that had characterized previous celebrations. Kane coordinated with Minister Torres to position additional security assets throughout the capital while making their deployment appear routine. Royal guards were supplemented with intelligence operatives disguised as festival workers, creating multiple layers of protection that remained invisible to casual observation. Cross remained in the medical wing but served as central coordinator for the counterintelligence operation. His knowledge of Prince Ashford's communication patterns and strategic preferences proved invaluable in predicting the timing and nature of the coming attack. 72 hours after Cross's rescue, Harrison entered the medical wing with definitive results from his investigation. The intelligence director's expression carried both relief and profound disappointment. "We've identified the traitor," Harrison announced to the assembled group. Deputy Communications Director Amanda Foster has been transmitting classified information to Prince Ashford's operatives for at least 8 months. Kane remembered Foster as a dedicated professional who had earned rapid promotion through the administrative ranks. Her access to communication systems and festival planning made her the perfect inside source for enemy intelligence. "Foster doesn't know we've identified her," Harrison continued. "We've been monitoring her transmissions and feeding selected information to maintain her effectiveness while preventing her from discovering our awareness." Queen Helena reviewed Foster's personnel file on the portable display. The woman had a spotless record of service and had even received commendations for her work during previous diplomatic crises. "What turned her?" the Queen asked. "Financial pressure and ideological manipulation," Harrison replied. "Foster's family has significant debts, and Prince Ashford's operatives convinced her that the Northern Alliance would provide better economic opportunities for the kingdom. The revelation that treason could stem from economic desperation rather than pure malice added another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation. Foster wasn't a cartoon villain but a desperate person who had made catastrophic choices. Cross struggled to sit up as the medications from earlier began wearing off. "Helena, we need to make our final decision about the festival. Harrison's intelligence suggests Prince Ashford's forces will move during the opening ceremony tomorrow." The Queen walked to the window overlooking the festival grounds. Thousands of visitors had already arrived in the capital, and the atmosphere of celebration was building throughout the city. Children ran through the streets while vendors prepared their stalls for the economic opportunity of the year. "We proceed as planned," she decided. "Foster will be allowed to transmit our false security arrangements to Prince Ashford. When his forces attack what they believe are vulnerable targets, they'll find themselves facing overwhelming defensive positions." Kane checked his chronometer and noted the approaching shift change for palace security. The next 18 hours would determine whether their strategy succeeded in protecting the kingdom or resulted in catastrophic failure. "Commander Cross, how are you feeling?" Dr. Wells asked as she entered the room for her final medical assessment. "Ready to do my job," Cross replied, though Kane could see the exhaustion weighing on the injured man. Queen Helena approached Cross's bedside and placed her hand gently on his uninjured arm. "Nathan, you've already done more than enough. The intelligence you brought back saved the kingdom." "The kingdom isn't saved yet," Cross reminded her. "Prince Ashford is still out there with invasion forces, and we still have to execute this counterattack perfectly." Kane watched the personal moment between his queen and the commander while maintaining awareness of security protocols. Their relationship had been tested by separation, danger, and political complexity, but the underlying connection remained unbroken. "Your Majesty, final security briefing in 1 hour," Kane announced, giving them notice that the private conversation needed to conclude. As the various officials departed to make final preparations, Queen Helena remained beside Cross's bed. The weight of tomorrow's challenges pressed down on both of them, but underneath the political and military concerns lay the simple relief of reunion. "When this is over," she said quietly, "we need to have a different kind of conversation." Cross nodded, understanding the personal implications behind her words. "When this is over, we'll have time for all the conversations that matter." Dr. Wells returned with a final dose of pain medication that would help Cross function during the critical hours ahead. "Commander, after tomorrow's operation, I'm ordering complete bed rest for at least a week. Your body has been pushed beyond reasonable limits. After tomorrow, I'll sleep for a month," Cross promised. Queen Helena stood and straightened her formal robes, transforming once again from the woman who had rescued her lost love into the monarch who would defend her people. The festival would begin in 14 hours, and Prince Ashford's forces would soon discover that their carefully planned invasion had become a perfectly orchestrated trap. Kane took his position as the Queen's escort, knowing that the next 24 hours would either secure their kingdom's future or destroy everything they had worked to protect. The Harvest Festival was about to become the most important battle in their nation's history. As night fell across the capital, thousands of visitors settled into temporary accommodations, while festival workers made final preparations. None of them knew that beneath the celebration's cheerful surface, the fate of their kingdom hung in the balance. The opening ceremony of the Harvest Festival dawned crisp and clear, with autumn sunlight streaming across the palace grounds where 30,000 visitors had gathered for the traditional royal address. Queen Helena stood on the ceremonial platform wearing the crown of seasons, her voice carrying across the crowd through amplification systems as she delivered the familiar words of welcome and gratitude. Kane positioned himself at the platform's base, monitoring security feeds that showed the festival sprawling across 12 city blocks. Intelligence operatives disguised as vendors, performers, and visitors maintained constant communication through concealed devices. Every face in the crowd had been analyzed, every potential threat assessed and cataloged. In the medical wing, Cross watched the ceremony through secure monitors while coordinating with Harrison's intelligence teams. The pain medications allowed him to focus despite his injuries, and his knowledge of Prince Ashford's tactical preferences provided crucial insights into the timing of the expected attack. Deputy Communications Director Foster stood in the media coordination area, unaware that every message she transmitted was being monitored and analyzed. Her final communication to Prince Ashford's operatives had confirmed the Queen's position on the platform and provided detailed information about security arrangements that were entirely fictional. "Movement detected in Sector 7, Kane heard through his earpiece as the Queen concluded her opening remarks. 12 individuals in festival worker uniforms moving toward the ceremonial platform. The attack was beginning exactly as Cross had predicted. Prince Ashford's advance team was positioning themselves for what they believed would be a simple assassination, followed by a coordinated invasion from the Northern Alliance forces, waiting just beyond the kingdom's borders. Queen Helena stepped down from the platform with graceful composure, apparently following her scheduled route toward the main festival area. Only Kane and the inner security team knew that her path would lead her away from the crowd and into a heavily defended staging area where elite royal guards waited with advanced defensive equipment. "Contact established," Harrison reported through the communication network. "Prince Ashford's operatives are moving on the decoy route. All units prepare for Phase 2 implementation." The festival continued around them with thousands of visitors completely unaware that a battle was unfolding beneath a veneer of celebration. Children laughed at puppet shows while vendors called out their wares, the normalcy of the scene providing perfect cover for the complex military operation taking place. Cross gritted his teeth and pushed himself out of the medical bed despite Dr. Wells's protests. The climactic moment of their counterattack was approaching, and he refused to remain on the sidelines while others fought to protect the Queen and kingdom he loved. "Commander, you're in no condition to participate in field operations," Wells insisted as Cross reached for his military communications device. "Doctor, some things are more important than medical clearance," Cross replied, activating the device and connecting to the operational command frequency. Through the palace windows, smoke began rising from the festival grounds as Prince Ashford's operatives realized they had walked into an elaborate trap. The ceremonial platform they had targeted was heavily defended. The security arrangements they had received were completely false, and their escape routes were blocked by soldiers who had been waiting in concealment. Kane coordinated the capture of the infiltration team with practiced efficiency. Each operative was taken alive to provide additional intelligence about Prince Ashford's broader invasion plans. The Northern Alliance forces waiting outside the kingdom's borders would soon discover that their carefully planned conquest had become a complete disaster. "Foster is attempting to flee," Harrison reported as the communications director realized her exposure, "intercepting her before she reaches the outer perimeter." Queen Helena emerged from the secure staging area as the immediate threat was neutralized. Her royal composure remained intact, but Kane could see the relief in her posture as reports confirmed the success of their operation. The festival crowd remained largely unaware of the drama that had unfolded around them. Professional performers continued their shows while security teams quietly removed Prince Ashford's operatives and cleaned up any evidence of the conflict. The harvest celebration would continue as planned, but beneath the surface, the kingdom had just won a critical victory. Cross made his way slowly from the medical wing to the operational command center, his determination overriding the physical limitations of his injuries. When Queen Helena saw him entering the room, her careful composure finally cracked with visible relief and emotion. "It's over," she said, moving to support his unsteady steps. "Prince Ashford's invasion force is retreating, and we have enough evidence to expose his plans to the international community." "And Foster?" Cross asked. "In custody and talking," Harrison replied. "She's providing information about the full scope of Prince Ashford's intelligence network. We'll be able to roll up his operatives throughout the region." Kane watched as his queen and the rescued commander stood together, both exhausted but victorious. The woman who had thought she lost Cross forever now held him safe in her arms while their kingdoms celebrated around them, completely unaware of how close they had come to conquest and destruction. The Harvest Festival continued for 3 more days, but the opening ceremony's hidden battle had secured not just an immediate victory, but a lasting peace. Prince Ashford's failed invasion attempt would undermine his political position for years to come, while the intelligence gathered from captured operatives would protect the kingdom from future threats. As evening settled over the palace, Cross finally accepted Dr. Wells's insistence on returning to the medical wing for proper rest and recovery. Queen Helena walked beside him, no longer needing to hide the depth of her feelings behind royal protocol. "When you disappeared 6 months ago, I thought I would have to rule alone forever," she admitted as they reached his room. "You were never alone," Cross replied. "Even when I was presumed dead, even when everything seemed impossible, I knew I would find a way back to you." Kane took his position outside the medical wing, understanding that his duty now included protecting not just the kingdom's security, but the personal happiness of the woman who had dedicated her life to serving her people. Some secrets were worth guarding, and some love stories deserved protection from the harsh realities of political power. The Harvest Festival would be remembered as one of the most successful celebrations in the kingdom's history. The visitors would return home with stories of perfect weather, exceptional entertainment, and the warmth of royal hospitality. None of them would ever know that they had witnessed the day a queen's love helped save a nation. Dr. Wells conducted her final examination of Cross's condition and pronounced his recovery ahead of schedule. The medications, determination, and relief of reunion had combined to accelerate his healing beyond normal expectations. "Commander Cross will make a complete recovery," she reported to Queen Helena. "The radiation exposure caused no permanent damage, and the fractures are healing properly." As Kane maintained his watch over the medical wing, he reflected on the events that had brought them to this moment. A rescue mission born from personal emotion had uncovered a conspiracy that threatened their entire way of life. The woman who had risked everything for love had ended up saving her kingdom through that same willingness to act on what mattered most. The Harvest Festival concluded with traditional fireworks that painted the night sky in brilliant colors. Queen Helena and Commander Cross watched from the medical wing window, both understanding that they had been given a rare second chance at happiness in a world that rarely offered such gifts. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, political complications, and the endless responsibilities of leadership. But tonight, for the first time in 6 months, they could rest in the knowledge that they were both alive, both safe, and both home.